Greetings. We're so happy and excited to be with you again on Choices. We want you to know how special and valuable you are to us. We value you above all material wealth we could accumulate. This world is going at a fast rate. As parents, guardians, and caregivers, we cannot neglect to lose focus on our children. They are an heritage from the Lord. We must pay attention to them, or else we would lose them. The time has come when we have to look, pray, listen, hear, and guide them. Don't take things for granted because it could be too late. We are appealing to all and sundry. We have a lot of work to do. Let us work while it is day. The night will come when we will not be able to work. They are our future leaders. Let us look out for them. This is Choices, a voice and not an echo. Blessings to all of you, our attentive listeners. Stay true with us and enjoy the discussion. Thanks and welcome again.
Psalms 127:3 says, children, they are heritage of the Lord. The offspring, a reward from him. And so clearly, every child that is born, that child has been given the opportunity to live, to come into this world by God. And so it is important that we do everything within our power to ensure that children or that child is nurtured, developed so that they could fulfill their God-given potential. While it is important that parents play a pivotal role in the developmental process of our children, we must recognize that raising children requires a more holistic approach if they're going to be successful. Why? In a world where there is division of labor, a child is not confined to the home specifically. For example, for education, the child has to go to school. Here is where the role of teachers, the role of education officials, their roles are fundamental in the whole process. Children, they go to church, they places of worship. So all we're saying is that it is important that they hear the same thing wherever they go. And the point we're making is that the church, the school, the home can be at variance in what is being transmitted. Because for us to be effective and to be efficient in the process of touching the hearts and the minds of our children, all the stakeholders who the children will encounter, all those stakeholders, they have a responsibility of saying the same thing for the development of those children. Like we heard before, they are our future, and if we allow them to fall by the wayside, there could be no real development in any society, in any community, in any nation, because of what they bring to the process of transformation.
You know, quite recently, Dr. Hudson, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Quite recently, I was reading an article that came out of a story in South Africa. And it emphasizes the importance of watching over our children, or else sometimes even their own actions can lead to their own detriment. And in that article, it was speaking to, and I think they are still doing the research work, they were speaking to the whole issue of 24 students. I think they just finished writing different kinds of exams and so on. And the groundwork seemed to suggest that they just wanted a night out. One mother said she didn't even know her daughter was not at home. But 24 of them died, all 24 of them died after going to a bar and they were drinking and enjoying themselves. While drinking, the bar attendant said he just suddenly saw them starting to slouch over the table and thought that they were too tipsy and was wondering what was happening. And then he started to check and only to find that they were not breathing. There was no pulse. And he became worried because he was open before, after hours, and he's not supposed to serve drinks to those kinds of ages at that particular venue. We have two medical doctors on this program, and we've been talking about Molly and how sometimes deceptively it is being used and its effect. We have Dr. Trenton Griffith, and we have Dr. Keisha Nelson, both medical doctors on this program. Would you like to delve in to this issue, Molly, ecstasy? Dr. Trenton, welcome.
Hi, good morning. Hi, pleasure to be here. So I function as a role as a psychiatry resident in this forum this morning. And I think if there's any specialty in medicine that's the most affected by Molly, it's going to be psychiatry. So there are lots of medical complications of Molly, or ecstasy as it is also known. Jane, X, E, the names are numerous, all right? I learned that we also call it brown sugar in Guyana. So these are the things as parents we have to look out for, because you might hear your children talking about something and you're not sure what it is that they're talking about. So in psychiatry, in Guyana, as a matter of fact, we are facing a major problem with the use of ecstasy and Molly and these things like that. And it's very romanticized in the media about Molly. It's in the songs. I remember when I was much younger, there was a song called Molly, actually. And now I see it's making a return where the artists are singing about Molly. I'm on social media and I see everything is the Molly. And this has become part of our culture here in Guyana. So, there is much to talk about. I usually like to start by just, if I'm going to do a talk, just to give people an idea of where things came from, because I think that when you know where it came from, you can understand how it is where it is, how it's arrived where it is, and what we need to do going forward. All right. So ecstasy, Molly, whatever name I use, I'm referring to the same thing. It falls within the class of a stimulant, but it also has hallucinogenic properties. So that's where the problems come from. So stimulants are any group of substances that give us this kind of get up and go behavior. So caffeine is a stimulant. Cocaine is also a stimulant, all right? And the hallucinogens are things that causes changes in our perception. So we might not understand what that means, but everybody knows what it is to be hallucinating. So when you hallucinate is when you see something that might not be there or hear something that's not actually occurring. And in our own lingo in Guyana, if you see something that's not happening and hear something that's not happening, people will say that you're mad, all right? And then if you want to put those two terms together, so the stimulants make you go and the hallucinogens make you mad. So Molly, which functions as both, will make you go mad, all right? And that's exactly what we're seeing happening in our society, because Molly is a crystalline version of ecstasy. And as a result, there is no prescribed way how to use it. So most of the side effects are as a result of toxicity or overdose. And so if it's being called brown sugar, so imagine when we're making our tea. So I like my tea sweet. So I would put maybe 2, 3 scoops of 2 teaspoons of sugar. All right. My mom would use no sugar and drink her tea. I can't, for the love of anything, drink tea without sugar inside it. But I'm saying this because there is no definitive way in which you put sugar in your tea. And so there is no definitive safe way to use Molly because nobody knows the answer to that, all right? So sometimes people are going to put a little bit, sometimes they put a lot, and then you will have side effects because not only in the amount that you use, but in the way that it's prepared. So a lot of times the persons that make this Molly, they would use other chemicals to mix it up. Sometimes they can use heroin, they can use cocaine, they can use so many other things that gets in this Molly. And as a result of that, you have a lot of side effects. And I talk about the side effects. So what do we see in psychiatry? So these drugs, they change your mind, okay? Not just in a figurative way, but anatomically, because there are studies that are saying that Molly, MDMA, as it's the scientific notation for it, it causes structural changes, long-term structural changes to your brain. So it changes the anatomy of your brain. This is kind of the way that dependence becomes a problem. So it makes you feel good, and then your brain changes the structure. And so in order to be normal, you always need a little bit more. So if you're going to liken it to something, think of alcohol, which I know you mentioned earlier as another problem that you're facing. So the first time you take alcohol, you might become drunk. You might take a shot, yeah? And then you do this every day for a month. Eventually, this shot will not do anything for you. You need to take this much. And then you continue. And then eventually, your shot moves from a shot to a little grenade. And then it moves to an entire bottle because the receptors that are involved in getting you to where this substance takes you, it becomes sensitized it or desensitized it. So it requires more of the substance to have that same effect. That's why persons that are using drugs, you see there's usually a progression. So you might start small with a little bit of weed one time, you feel nice, then before you know it, you're smoking every day. You're smoking many joints per day. You might pop Molly one time and you feel nice, and then next thing you know, you're popping Molly every day because the changes in your brain have occurred. And when this happens...
Doc, could I ask a question?
Sure.
As you were describing this matter, I must let you know it sounds so frightening. I have done some work, but you in this field have actually had first-hand experience of the side effects. Do you find that there is an increased number of persons who seem to have been exposed, especially children and youth, to this matter?
So definitely, more so with our youths. So children for us are younger than a certain age, and any exposure they might have might be accidental. But the youths, so I don't know where people get it, but it seems like everywhere you go, you can get Molly. All right. I've had many persons come to the clinic that would have used it in schools. All right. It's being used when people go out. It's being used at parties everywhere. And there has been an upsurge in the amount of people that are using Molly. And I believe, as I mentioned before, it's because of the romantic way in which it's being portrayed in the media. And so it's become very popular now that people are using it. The side effects you mentioned, I keep saying it, but I haven't spoken about it. So what we typically see So the stimulants will make you feel like you can do anything. All right. I can tell you. So not too long ago, I'm not sure if you are familiar with the structure of the hospital. A patient ran and jumped over something because he was under the effects of Molly. It could have been, nothing happened to him, but it could have been worse because he was under the impression that he can do anything. All right. These drugs also make you very paranoid. You behave in a way that you think that people are trying to harm you, people are trying to do something to you. And when you feel like that, your first response is either fight or flight. So you either run and get yourself in trouble, or you become very aggressive, very physical, very destructive. It also changes your cognition. You become confused, you become delirious. And seeing somebody that's confused and thinking that somebody else is trying to harm them, or they might be perceiving something that's not there. So you might be standing up there looking like a monster or somebody that possesses a knife or something trying to harm them. And the response is usually very negative and very scary. All right. So it is a major problem that we're facing here in the country. And it's important that people understand that the effects of these substances, all right, I'm not just going to limit it to Molly, because almost all of these recreational drugs or illicit drugs, all of them, they're having a really bad effect on our population. And one more thing I must talk about with regarding the effect that it's having. So mental illness is much like any other chronic illness, like hypertension and diabetes and so on. I can have it because there's a genetic predisposition for it. So somewhere along the line, you check my family and somebody has hypertension. I could be doing everything. And then suddenly one day I'm not feeling well and the doctor checks me out and he tells me that I'm hypertensive. And you wonder why. And then he can look back and say, well, you have been eating the wrong things and you haven't been exercising. So, it come out. All right. The same way, you might not know if you have a gene for mental illness. And I'm speaking specifically for psychotic mental illnesses like schizophrenia and so on, mental illness. So imagine it to be the fast foods and the lack of exercise in comparison to hypertension and diabetes. So using these drugs will bring on sooner any mental illness that you might have a genetic predisposition for.
I can actually see that. And as we have spent quite a lot of time as we describe these issues, what are the recommendations? What can we recommend going forward? And this is for every one of us. Or what are the solutions? What do we do as a people? What can be done?
Doc? I am happy that you've asked that question, because you know that we've met. As a matter of fact, I've just completed the preparation of the memorandum of understanding between the different groups that will be helping to deal with some of the issues in schools. And I think Dr. Tristan made a wonderful exposition. And this is exactly the kind of information that we probably need. So I am suggesting that when the pastors, for example, who've been given an opportunity to address school children, issues of this nature could be raised, because clearly Doc has drawn a parallel between not just happiness and joy of the person, but mental illness and some of the effects like altering of the brain, the anatomy of the brain, the structure of the brain. Taking this drug has to do with leading to other drugs. And so I think these kinds of moral talks should encompass what we are doing as we prepare the structured timetable to address these children. I think that's one big thing that can be done to address it, because information, knowledge is power.
I like the fact that Dr. Tristan mentioned the effect of Molly and its potential to change our habits. So one of the recommendation, I think Deacon Martin would have emphasized this a while back, about the fact of promoting alternative ways of encouraging healthy minds. So outdoor activities, we can promote our curriculum. So for this is like a recommendation to to Dr. Hudson and the education team, have outdoor activities, more emphasis on these, because we find that a lot of young people suffer with depression, and they tend to isolate. And having experienced some bouts of depression, while I was younger, I noticed when you isolate, it doesn't help you. So you just become, everything just looks dark and gloomy, and you get more depressed. So if you, and you may become more susceptible to using a drug like Molly. So if you go outside, you see like bright sunlight, you play, you build up your dopamine experience, and you get a sense that you won't be susceptible to doing those things. You'd find that, okay, I'm happy when I'm with my friends outdoor. I don't have to go to the club and party. I don't have to drink. I don't have to use these things, but I can do these outdoor activities.
But if you're not careful, some of those same friends may give you Molly to use.
I like that as well, Limar. I also like what you were saying. If I can go quickly, and then Dr. Keisha. I remember you are so right with the playing and going outdoors and doing something different. I remember as going to school, and as a youngster, as a teenager, my mother was very strict, So when you come home, you can only play for a certain amount of time, and then you have to go inside and do your schoolwork and so forth. So when you go to school, you just want to play. You're not focused. You're just playing and playing and playing. So in today's time, however, there's so much lessons. It's in my time you could still play, but now it's lessons in the morning, lessons in the evening. So someone who may be using Molly, you may think, what, I didn't expect that from him. I didn't expect that from her. But they're occupied with studying and studying and studying and studying, and there's no time for playing. So there's a balance that we need to strike indeed, Limar. I would want to support you in that.
Yes. So I'm thinking about all that I've heard for today, and one of the things I think makes an impact as well is having core teams or support group for young people, whether it's in the school setting or even the setting of the church or wherever, so that young people will know that they're not alone. Why am I saying this? I've seen time and time again as a school child, different persons who would have struggled with these issues come and speak to us. And so that in itself would have helped to curb some of the issues that we faced back then, because we had somebody who spoke to us about the dangers, perhaps why they started using these substances and how they dealt with the issues that they were facing in terms of their coping mechanisms. So I think it's really good to have support teams, persons perhaps who would have overcame the challenge of using alcohol and all of these different substances, of course, that will alter the brain and ultimately the entire body. So I think support teams are very important. It provides a space for us to listen. I think one of the greatest problems we have is listening. We do not listen enough. Give them a space where they can say exactly what is happening. And as you listen, you can find a channel to be able to help them to cope with what is going on, so that they in turn would not necessarily always have to see the use of substances as a method to alleviate their stress. So that's one of the methods. And the other method I would like to suggest as well, to in terms of working with the medical team, I would like to look at family medicine. Why am I saying this? Because one of the things we have noticed is a number of young persons are now are now developing heart diseases. And when we do background check, we recognize that a number of these persons are using prohibited substances. And so when you do further probes, what you find is that the persons in the communities are using those substances. In some instances, it's a parent that is using that. So we're always thinking, how can we together together with the leaders of the community. That's why family doctors don't function in isolation, they function with the community leaders. How do we provide the relevant information in terms of the link with these various diseases and the use of illegal substances, and how do we together form a team that will be able to help these young people to have an outlet? Limar nicely said it, we can have a community center. Yeah, but we still have to have somebody who will monitor that community center, because the community center could very well be the post town for the continued use of drugs. So I'm saying together, if there's a source of information partnered with leadership, whether it's in the community, whether it's wherever, and together you form a core team of support, it's very important. Should we use the school system? Why not have persons who would have overcome this challenge come speak to us? Some people say who feels it knows it. It's not easy for you to say to me, who you've never experienced anything, that you know what, this thing is dangerous and really can't help you, as against somebody. I'm not saying that we should do it, but I'm saying for some adult who would have already been exposed to that circumstance and would have overcome it, it would be great to have those persons as well come and speak of their stories. It would make a difference, I believe.
And also a toolkit designed to help people to dial it back, because persons are already on this product. Many young people are already on it. So providing them with a system that they could, without even speaking or consulting with anyone else, try to bring themselves back to normalcy. I think that would be a great idea.
What a program. Dr. Lee, the last 60 seconds belong to you.
But I really want to thank Dr. Trixton for what he has really revealed to us today. And I think another program we could look at if there's some curative approach that we could use, and how we can really help those who are already hooked on it, as one might say. But again, this is Choices, and we want to encourage you to work assiduously with our young people. They have something to offer. They have some good skills, some good talent to offer to this society. And as the opening remarks, we did mention that they are heritage from the Lord. So God bless you, stay tuned, and please join us next week as we continue to explore ways in which we can make them assets to our society. God bless you.
We thank you for joining us on Choices today. Remember, you can join us at First Assembly, LNP Durban Street, Workmanville, Georgetown, Guyana, for any of our special services. I'm Celicia on behalf of the set, reminding you that your whole life is the sum of your choices. God bless you.